I'm Kathy Hart, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I hope everyone can see and hear me okay. I apologize for the delayed start, but I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone. So I'm going to wait a few minutes and see if a few more people join us. And we are broadcasting across Facebook and across YouTube. And we'll also be, oh my goodness, I see a few people joining us. Again, I apologize for the delayed start, but I am here and see a few people joining us. And as we're waiting for people to hop on, if you just want to type in the chat where you're viewing this webinar from. I am in my lovely office in beautiful Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. It's still a nice sunny afternoon. So feel free to type in where you're viewing from. And then I'm going to get started in just a moment. See a lot more people joining us. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome. I'm excited to talk about college application essays and the whole process. Got a lot of good information for you. And actually, while people are joining us, I'll wait another moment. I'm just going to type my email in the address. It's heart@scoreatt.com. And then that way, oh, sorry, someone from Boston. I'm originally from there a long, long time ago. Welcome. Good evening. Another Floridian, it looks like. And I put my email address in the chat, so that way, if I miss any questions or if you have any follow-up questions after tonight's webinar, please, reach out and say hello. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Good. See a lot more people popping in. I see Chicago. I see West Palm Beach. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Another Florida. All right, more West Palm Beach. Awesome, Orlando. Oh, great. Well, it's so good to see everyone. Again, apologize for the slightly delayed start, but we're going to get started. Just a quick heads up, when I move into presentation mode, I cannot see the chat. So unfortunately, it makes it a little difficult for me to answer questions in real time, but I do promise once I end my presentation, then I'll go through the chat and answer any follow-up questions. You also have my email address, so if I don't see it, if I completely miss it, please feel free to send me an email. Hello, lots of Floridians tonight. Welcome, welcome. All right, so let me go ahead. And I'm going to pull up my screen. And let me just go in here and I am going to play from the start. And it looks like, let me just make sure that everyone can see. Good, looks like everyone can see my screen. Let's see. Yep, got a few more people joining. All right, so good. So I'm gonna focus on my screen right now. So again, I can't see the chat, but welcome to everyone, and I'm gonna get started. So we are broadcasting live across Facebook, also on YouTube, and we will make a recording of tonight's webinar, and that will be available at scorewebinars.com. And so if you were registered for tonight's event, you will also receive a link to the recording in your email in a few days. Now, on our webinar landing page, we have put some links for some information. You don't need it for this evening. I won't be referencing any of it, but it's just some good resources to complement tonight's conversation about college essays with some additional resources and facts to help you in the college application process. That's me. I'm Kathy Hart. I've been with Score at the Top since 2013 on the educational consulting team, and also I'm a former AP English language and composition teacher. So tonight's agenda, we're going to be discussing college application essays with a primary focus on the personal statement. We'll talk a little bit about supplemental essays. I'll give you some tips on how to get started, a few essay do's and don'ts for the revision process, and I'm also going to read you some sample essays that worked. All right, so if you take a look at my screen now, you can see the top 10 factors in college admissions. And rounding out the top 5 are well-written essays, which, especially given the fact that many schools that have been test optional these past 2 years in response to COVID, are continuing their test optional policies this year. For students who aren't choosing to submit test scores for whatever reason, are going to find now that the well-written essays, take on a little bit more weight in that list of factors determining college admission. So certainly just behind the academic points and also involvement in school, well-written essays round out that top 5 there. And so you might be asking, well, where do I find these essays? How do I share my essays with the colleges? And most students are going to be using the Common App to apply to colleges. So you can find it at commonapp.org. There are close to 1,000, I believe now, member colleges, including many well-known Auto State universities, Ivies. And this year, we're very excited. All 12 of Florida State universities have joined the Common App. Now, some students may also use another well-known platform called the Coalition application. It has slightly fewer members at around 100. Many of them are well-known universities. It's now being integrated into the SCOIR, that's SCOIR platform. So students, if your high school uses SCOIR, starting August 1st onward, you should be able to apply to colleges seamlessly with the integration of the Coalition application into SCOIR. Now let's talk about writing your college application essays. And so we always like to start with the personal statement, which you'll hear me refer to interchangeably as the personal essay and the college essay. So what it is it's the primary essay. It's shared with all the colleges that require it. So it's not written, differently to be sent out to different colleges. It's a single essay. And it's an essay that is about you. It gives you the opportunity, students, to talk about a moment from your life and reflect on why it mattered and what you learned. On my screen right now, you can see the Common App personal statement choices. I'm not going to go through each of them. You can find them on your Common App under the writing section. But if we just take a quick look at choice number 1, where it says some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So you can see that this question and the others that follow it are designed to elicit a personal narrative, a story from the student's life. Likewise, the personal statement prompts on the Coalition app are similar in that they're asking students to write about themselves. And I'll just briefly mention the Common App has a minimum word count of 250 words and a maximum of 650 words. If you go one word over, it will cut you off at the 650th word. And then the Coalition has a suggested length between 500 and 650. And we usually recommend students kind of target that 500 to 600 word range. And so, of course, given that application essays round out that top 5 of most important factors in college admissions, it's probably going to be a little bit more important without test scores, just recognizing that the essay is a powerful tool and that, admissions officers do read the essays and do use them in determining an offer of admission. Now, switching gears a little bit. So now I know what the application essay is like, but how do I write it? What do I do to actually go about writing this essay? So what's great about this essay is, unlike many of these thesis-driven essays that you're taught to write in school, 5 paragraphs, body paragraphs, writing with evidence, here you get to employ a lot of techniques that come from creative writing. So you're free of the 5-paragraph format. You can have a single word sentence, a single sentence paragraph. And with this freedom, it really merits some time to carefully consider what you're going to write about. So, this can be, I think, a little intimidating, is thinking about, okay, I have to write this essay. Where do I start? What can help me stand out? So you're always going to go back to you. So definitely the brainstorming process, and I'm going to go through the writing process in just a moment, but we often forget about the brainstorming process. And it really is a critical tool in developing a really awesome common app, coalition app, personal essay. So definitely students spend some time brainstorming ideas, list out your ideas. If you're not sure, talk to parents, talk to teachers, talk to counselors. Now, where can I find those best ideas? So I'm just going to put a few suggestions up on my screen. You're welcome to grab a screenshot, take a picture, and certainly by looking at your personal essay prompts, sometimes those elicit a great idea just by reading the prompt. Sometimes you need to dig a little deeper and get a little bit more specific. So you can think about some really neat things about your life that might not otherwise appear on your college application or might not appear to a great extent. What are one of your core values? Are you very curious? Are you kind? What was the best recipe that you made? And what were the actual results? Have you got an interesting haircut or something unusual about your height? What's something you know a lot about that you always impress your friends with your, cool facts? Few other ideas, and I'll put them up on the screen to kind of design to get you thinking about some topics. Again, feel free to take a picture or a screenshot. So, what's a favorite song, a book, or movie? You might even see this topic come up in supplemental essays. What's a favorite childhood memory? How might that spark some ideas? The word that won't go away. What's your favorite word? What's a word that you always come back to? What's a tough decision that you've had to make, and what were the results? What did you learn about yourself? And so then once you happen upon that great idea, after spending a lot of time brainstorming, get started writing. So let's just quickly review the writing process. So of course, spend time brainstorming. And when you're doing brainstorming, don't just say, oh, I'll think about it. No, write it down, take out a note on your phone, open up a Google Docs, a Word, a notebook works great too, and list out all the moments that you can recall from your story. And also reflect upon that story's meaning, because this is more than just telling, an interesting anecdote. It's also reflecting on what you learned and why it mattered. Once you got all those ideas down on the page, silence your inner editor and write your rough draft. I think this is where students tend to get stuck the most, is that they start writing their rough draft and they realize, oh yeah, that really sounds pretty rough. That's why we call it a rough draft. So be patient with the process, sort of the excellence in your essay. The quality is going to steadily improve as you move through drafts. So I usually tell all my students, set a target of about 5 drafts, especially for that personal essay. And as you get to the end of the essay and you feel as though it's almost done, do a close reading to catch any small errors. Do a read out loud of the essay to catch those errors that your eye missed. And then definitely start the process early. It does take time. So rising seniors, right now it's summer. Hopefully you're enjoying some great time off, some interesting summer experiences. But do take advantage of this quiet time to just get started on your essays, trusting that it is a process. All right. So now I'm going to switch gears a little and talk about some do's and don'ts and give you some examples. And so I'm just going to say this, do's and don'ts don't pertain to that rough draft. Remember, the rough draft, we're not worried if it's one single long paragraph composed of one single long sentence, that's okay. But as you're moving through the revision process, here are some things to think about to strengthen your essay. So first of all, you want to make sure that your essay is about you. So it's a story that only you can tell. And even if you might bring up your best friend, a sibling, a parent, a favorite teacher within the context of the essay, you want to make sure that the essay focuses mainly on you, that it's not a story about someone else. A conversational tone is great. Remember, we're looking at a piece of essay that's a piece of writing that's a personal narrative. that is more of a creative piece. So you can imagine how you tell a story to a friend when you're facing them, and you can use that tone. It's a natural tone throughout your essay. And it's perfectly fine to use sentence fragments, to use shorter, longer sentences, dialogues, and just having that natural storytelling voice. Contractions are great too. Keeping your focus narrow, this is a great thing to think about when you're working on your brainstorming. When you want to pick, let's say, soccer, which is a very broad topic. A student might be playing soccer for many, many years. And then narrowing down that focus. So you narrow it down to maybe one practice, to one moment out in the field, to that 1 second before you touch the ball with your cleat. So keeping that narrow focus actually really allows you to write your essay more richly and with vivid details. So let's look at an example here. So when I start off writing, I might have some fairly flat sentences. So I like to be surrounded by people with a variety of backgrounds and interests. So it's a fairly common theme. But here, when I go back and I'm working through my revisions, I can think about, okay, variety of backgrounds and interests. Let me go back to that experience. What do I recall from it? What are those vivid details? So I have a baseball coach who thinks he's bogey, discussed Marxism with a little old lady, and then heard about someone's gallbladder operation. So we've taken this very flat, generic sentence and enriched it with details. Let me show you another example here. So this is a pretty common idea. Students have been supported by those who love them, their family members. They want to pass along this gratitude towards others. So if we compare the first example with the second, we can see now who has supported the student, the mom and dad. We get a detail about standing on the sideline. We know who the student wants to serve. They want to work with fourth graders. So this is what we call show, don't tell. And it's a fairly common statement in the world of creative writing. Now, there will be moments that you need to tell in your essay. You only have 650 words tops. But you have to kind of look as you're going through the revision process and look at, where would it be better to show over telling? So here we got fancy lab equipment. So why don't I describe it and maybe, show my fear of my slightest breath would set off some chain reaction. Years and years ago, when I used to volunteer in my daughter's second grade writing class, I always remember her teacher would say, you're creating a word picture, a mind picture. That's what showing does. It allows your reader to envision the scene. Of course, at the end of the day, you do need to answer the question. So making sure your extracurricular essay doesn't wander off into a why this college essay. So do always be, keeping in mind what you're being asked to write about. And then also too, as you're going down into the nitty gritty, into the individual sentence and line edits, sometimes thinking about like varying your transitions. You might be accustomed to using first, next, last. You're welcome to take a screenshot here. These are some great conversational transitions that can help link ideas within paragraphs and in between paragraphs as well too. So there's some nice ones up on the screen. And feel free to take a little screenshot here. And another way to make your prose more vivid is looking for any passive voice sentences and converting them to active voice. We have a more vivid picture of the waiter dropping a tray of food rather than it being dropped by the waiter. All right, so talking about openings and conclusions, these are honestly the hardest part of the essay to write. Even when I do my own writing, I do struggle with openings and conclusions. And so for students, as you're working through the draft of your essay, sometimes you're not going to find that phenomenal opening or that engaging conclusion until second or even third, sometimes later drafts. So do be patient with it. Here you can look at a couple examples of two longer openings, and you can see how both of them incorporate some intrigue, some mystery. We want to keep reading. In the first instance, will the writer find work? The second one, what's so special about this first camera that's described so vividly as baby blue Sony point and shoot? So definitely spend some time crafting that opening. And some students are more concise and precise than others. So here are some sample short and sweet openers where, for instance, no more seltzer water for me. I wonder what happened there. Why was the science project a complete failure? And why are you sharing it in your college essay? So these short, precise openings can also offer a lot in terms of intrigue. All right, and then same thing here with conclusions. So when you're working on your conclusions, it gives you a nice opportunity to go back to impress the reader. And you can see a really nice example here. I contend that it's with imagination, thinking about infinity and solving Rubik's Cubes, that I further my passion and obsession with problems. Sure, I can crack Erno's code in a few seconds, but his glowing multicolored influence will remain with me for a lifetime. Here, you try. So there's a really nice invitation. And unlike when you're writing a paper for English or for history, you don't need to summarize in your conclusion. You don't need to restate a thesis. Many times, and I'm going to read a couple of sample essays later on, where I'm just going to read the openings and the conclusions so you can hear how sometimes a good conclusion goes back and connects to that opening. All right, so moving on to some essay don'ts, again, for the revision process, not for rough drafts. All right, so of course, when you're writing your essay, you want to write genuinely and authentically about you. You don't need to tell the reader, the university, what you think they want to hear. And also, you don't want to repeat what they already might know. This tends to come up a little bit when students are working on a why this college essay, when they talk about a great faculty and a beautiful campus, which could describe, nearly all schools in the United States and beyond. So, spending some time dipping into those details definitely will enrich those essays. You also want to be respectful towards your reader. And some students have a more humorous tone in their essays. Others have a more serious, thoughtful, reflective tone. You just want to make sure that your essay doesn't come across as cynical or condescending. And of course, you want to avoid writing a resume. And I talked at length about that, about narrowing down the focus to one moment, one experience. Your resume, your activity list will appear on other parts of your application. And so here we got a laundry list of what the student did junior year, student council, travel, average, worked at a cheese factory. I don't know about you, but I might like to hear more about that cheese factory story. Likewise, if you're writing from life experience, you can certainly take something that might seem like, a relatively common essay topic, for example, work, a family experience, some travel. But again, narrowing it down to a single moment, a job, a few hours on the job, maybe one special moment on a trip, a special meal. So those can certainly work, but again, you'll start from that narrow focus. And again, just finding that balance between using words to enrich, adding those vivid details, and then having excessive words that might not necessarily contribute anything to your essay. So if we look at the example here, it's much better to say I'm a slob rather than ramble on a little bit at the beginning of in that first example. And certainly you want to engage your reader, whether it's through humor, whether it's through reflection, whether it's through detail. Admissions officers will read your essays, but they're only going to spend a few minutes reading them. So definitely want to spend some time crafting, working on those openings and conclusions, again, to draw in your reader. Now, one thing to say here in talking about writing about a sensitive topic, say a family's divorce or a death in the family, these topics can be uh, they can be a little bit, well, they're certainly sensitive. And if ever I'm working with a student that might want to talk about a sensitive subject, we'll have a longer conversation of what is the reason, what is the story. So again, it really depends on the student and the situation. So I don't wish to generalize here, but just a few pieces of advice, students, if you are thinking about a sensitive subject, is first of all, making sure you're writing with maturity and clarity, making sure that you have some distance between the you of now and the you who experienced that hardship. It's an opportunity to reflect about growth, for overcoming adversity, and certainly when in doubt, talk to someone, talk to a trusted teacher, your guidance counselor, and get their feedback. And they can help you decide, is this an appropriate topic for an essay, or maybe it's something that might not serve the college essay purpose. Likely you'll find plenty of cliches in early drafts of essays. You can see a few of these up on my screen. And first of all, in terms of cliches, so a couple ways to get rid of these. So first of all, trust that your essay, your narrative, your story is making that point of that you learn from your mistakes, that you're determined, etc. And oftentimes the reader can draw that conclusion, they can infer. Other times, what you might want to do is, going back to that tip a little bit earlier, is if you start with a cliche and you want to keep in the ideas, is you can again take that broad general statement and surround it in vivid concrete details. So for something here, as I finished the race, I realized I learned the value of hard work and appreciated the fact that I could accomplish anything if I set my mind to it. So I take this fairly general statement and I add those details. The finish line was a buzz of body types, short, tall, skinny, and fat, all sharing a sentiment that glued us together. We had done it. We had conquered our own doubts. Mine were left behind somewhere in the dust. So it all goes back to show, don't tell. Another common cliche is, broadening your horizons through experience. So great. So we want to illustrate that. And let's do that with some very specific details, the hot dogs, ramen noodles, the choices of street food, the fact that the student feels as though they became a New Yorker everywhere in their blood. Let me give you another example, and I just had mentioned this a brief moment ago, is empty generic statements tend to come up pretty frequently in early drafts of a Why This College essay. And so you'll notice here, I chose College X because College X is committed to learning and I want to learn. College X is a perfect match because of its renowned professors. So if you notice, you could substitute the name of College X with the name of College Y. The essay probably needs a little bit more work and you need to provide some details specific to College X. I'm going to read you an example of a very well done Why This College essay in a few moments. Of course, use the level of vocabulary that's appropriate to you. You're going to hear in some of the sample essays that I'll read, some students have a natural affinity for larger, longer, more sophisticated language, and they use it quite adeptly. And other students write in clear, simple prose. So again, you don't need to feel as though I have to go look up on thesaurus.com, a multitude of ways to say interesting. When the word interesting might simply work. On the other hand, you also want to make sure that you're not using slang within your essay. Of course, you're not writing an email, you're not writing a text, you're not making a post. And also, especially when you're looking to reduce word count as you're coming to the end of the essay, was looking for some of these words that really don't add much, like very, cool, awesome, nice. Don't really add much to an essay. They're a little bit, almost a little bit too casual. And remove those, and you'll find that the adjective that you're perhaps modifying is just as strong without a very. And don't forget, contractions are perfectly fine because they'll help maintain that natural tone. All right, and of course, never, never, never plagiarize an essay, have someone other than you write an essay, purchase one on the internet. Admissions officers can tell when an essay is not written by a student. Also, don't recycle an essay unless it fits another prompt. Describing an extracurricular activity, for instance, is a universal college essay prompt and typically is not written for a specific college. So check the wording, and in some instance, you can reuse the same essay. Of course, at the end of the day, don't forget to proofread, and don't necessarily trust the grammar and spell checkers. I've seen in some instances high school being written as all one word, and it doesn't get the little squiggly spell check line. And in high school is 2 words always. And also sometimes if you use form instead of from or fried instead of friend, a spell checker won't catch that. Reading your essay out loud is very, 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 too many berries, very helpful in catching some of those little errors that your eye might miss. And of course, never forget that the essay is about you. And I think this is a great way to think about your essay when it's done, when you're wrapping it up, when you feel proud, when you're excited to send it to colleges, is take a look back over and ask yourself, if you're walking through your high school and you dropped your college essay and it didn't have your name on it and one of your teachers picked it up, would she know that it's about you based on your story? And if it passes that test, then you probably have a pretty good essay ready to go to colleges. All right, so I'm going to give you a little quiz. Again, I can't see the chat, so I can't see your responses, but feel free to type them, and I'm also going to chat about the answers. All right, so you're going to let me know what's wrong. So we've got, I entered onto the scene of this terrestrial sphere on a vernal evening in 1994. Is this A, too wordy, B, too much of a thesaurus, C, doesn't paint a descriptive enough picture, or D, nothing is wrong? Give you a moment. And you can type multiple letters, by the way. Good. So for this one, this is an A and a B. It's definitely too wordy. It, uses too much of a thesaurus and probably is providing unnecessary details for the purposes of a college essay. All right, let's look at our next one here. So as a high school sophomore, I was our church's rep to the youth fellowship. I organized youth group events, the largest being the Bishop's Ball, a statewide event for 300 young people. I also played JV soccer for 2 years. As a senior, I'll be playing varsity soccer, but in the off season. As a junior, I coached for my town. So here's our choices. We got A, rambles. B, covers too many different things. C, the comma after ball should be outside the quotes. D, nothing is wrong. Again, you can pick multiple answers. So for this one, this is another A, B. The student goes on, covers too many different things. Again, your resume, your activity list will tell the story of your involvement. It's up to you to describe some of the emotions and the specific experiences behind 1 or perhaps 2 activities. All right, here's another one. My friends and I love to spend weekend evenings together. We get along really well because we share so many classes together, and all of us are in the same 2 clubs. So should be A, 1 sentence. B, reveals little about the writer, lacks focus. C, should be my friends and me. And D, nothing is wrong. And so for this one here, I would definitely say this is a B. It reveals a little bit about, little about the writer. It lacks focus. You notice here, the writer's talking about themselves and their friends. And honestly, you probably, if you wanted to incorporate some of these details, I'm sure there's a way to combine them into a single sentence. All right, here's one more. I had no experience discussing human rights or mandatory minimum sentences. What I did have was determination. So let's look at our choices. A, the writer reveals nothing about herself. B, second sentence is too short. C, vocabulary is too simplistic. D, nothing is wrong. So for this one here, if you selected A, that is the correct answer. There's nothing really revealed yet in this particular sentence. Certainly there's a lot of potential, but definitely there is opportunity to add more. All right, and then we've got one here. I know it's all in good nature and we all laugh, but it is interesting to see how the tables have turned. So we have A, use the contraction its in place of it is to make the tone more conversational. B, needs a comma after nature. C, tables have turned is too colloquial. D, nothing is wrong. Yes, so for this one is also a multi-letter answer. Definitely the contraction helps. We probably would want to put a comma there. And certainly tables have turned is a bit too colloquial. It's kind of an empty generic statement. What does that mean? We probably want to make it more specific. All right. So I'm going to pause here, and now I'm going to share with you some essays that work. So you can hear what some essays sound like that have been gone through multiple drafts, that have been carefully proofread. And so I'm going to share these. So the first essay I'm going to read start to finish, is a personal essay. It's a recent one. And you can just listen in and listen to what the writer does well in this one. All right. When I methodically flip through the rows of fabric lining my wardrobe, I'm searching for an exterior that will convey my emotions, creativity, and story to the world. Rhinestones, feathers, sparkles, and ruffles are my preferred modes of communication, unconventional materials that articulate a multitude of feelings that I'm otherwise incapable of expressing in words. Infinitesimal details coalesce into a complete story that embodies my unfettered creativity, my authentic self. My extravagant, eclectic style makes me a polyglot who communicates in many languages. In my childhood, I unwaveringly communicated through my strange idiolect. An harmonious relationship between dazzling details and exotic fabrics spoke to me in just the way I wished to speak to the world. Fashion engrossed and transported me to a world where I was accepted. There was a certain ambiguity or irony in my language. Its confidence concealed my insecurities, but its individuality was empowering. As I grew older, the dichotomy between my wardrobe and that of my peers became increasingly evident, eventually manifesting in confrontation. Why do you always have to be so extra? My best friend asked in utter disgust. I combed my fingers through my freshly curled blonde hair and tussled with the crinkling fabric underneath my glistening homecoming dress in a desperate attempt to be less extra. Tears flooded my eyes, embarrassment incinerated my excitement, my creativity evaporated. Her humiliating words crushed my identity and initiated my quest for normalcy. I longed to disappear into the homogeneous sea of my peers, even as that antithetical desire stifled my language. For months, I was torn between my conviction to create and my inclination to assimilate. Living in a perpetual state of bewilderment, I succumbed to the opinion of others and watched my confidence disintegrated by my newfound normalcy. Unsurprisingly, I didn't find a balance. Instead, the conflict within me intensified, and my mind erupted like a volcano, causing cataclysmic damage to my world. With identity and language in ruins, I scavenged through the ashes of my self-worth, looking for the slightest recollection of my past persona. In retrospect, I was not longing for normalcy, but for acceptance. Time and time again, I abandoned my individuality, desperate for acceptance. Yet each time I was left rummaging through others' opinions, feeling even more lost than when I started. No matter how hard I tried to change myself, suffocate my creativity, or deny my extravagance, someone would always have an incisive opinion. Ultimately, accepting this reality paved the way for my new journey to self acceptance and allowed me to slowly regain my original language. Gradually, I leaned once again to embrace my unique qualities through my elaborate wardrobe. I stepped back into my atelier and examined the details that made clothing speak to me. The sequin tulle, glitter, and chiffon fabrics became the material aspects of my emotions and memories. The mini skirt with rhinestones ignited fireworks in my mind, transporting me to New Year's Day in Cabo. The black Lululemon leggings and Yeezy sneakers carried me back to my car accident with distant memories of fear and pain. The pandemonium of New York City traffic generated a faint smile on my face as I examined my silver and gold David Yurman bracelet. The immersive memories were gripping, the dazzling details arousing long-dormant feelings. My closet drowned out my desire to be typical. Its door once again opened to creativity, supporting my very own language once again. Despite others' opinions, I fuse avant-garde textiles with ornate accessories to satiate my hunger for creativity and to unlock and convey myriad stories within me. Each time I step out of my closet, confidence, creativity, and extravagance radiate through me. I flourish, I communicate, I am language. All right, so here's another personal statement. I was 7 when I first began to fly. No, not in an airplane nor in my imagination. 7 is when I joined a cheer squad. Interestingly, I've always associated that time in my life with ducklings. I remember sitting in the back of my mom's car on the way to my first cheer practice, barely able to peer out the side window when I spotted the family of ducklings in a scraggly patch of grass adjacent to a small pond. While others might not have noticed the tiny creatures, I was fascinated. A stagnant pond on the side of the highway seemed a difficult environment for ducklings to survive. Yet, I observed over the weeks and months that they did. What's more, the ducks managed to thrive and return to that pond each spring. Curiously, I began to think there were aspects of my life that were mirrored in the ducks. Ducklings hop before they fly. They have to dare, they have to persevere. My cheerleading career began in a gym with a specific teaching method. Never was I praised for my attempts at flying skills. Instead, I was reprimanded for not mastering moves more quickly. Hopping brought me little encouragement. I must have attempted a back tuck thousands of times before I could do it consistently. Even when I landed the move, my coach ordered me to do it again. My coaches often barked at my team to do 100 push-ups. While most of my teammates completed a few push-ups and walked away, I stayed. I was always the only one left on the floor, pushing myself past my own limits. Never did I dare cheat myself out of a single push-up. Despite this environment, I continued to learn the skills to become a flyer. The girl at the top of the pyramid, balanced on one leg, smile on my face. Like the ducklings, I had to take risks in order to fly. I was never afraid to fall, even as I got older and we began doing more advanced moves like basket tosses, where I was thrown 10 or 20 feet into the air. I wasn't afraid to fall. I rely on my teammates to hold me up, to catch me. We communicate well with each other, sharing muscle memory and trust. What I have always been afraid of is letting down my teammates. We all worked so hard and we often didn't win. Not that first year and not other years either. For years, we didn't win. Would I have liked more medals? Yes. Yet I kept coming back, like the ducks. Were there other factors apart from cheer that helped to shape my development and goals? Certainly. My family's values, my early Montessori education, 3 enduring childhood friendships, my high school science classes, and my internships. But cheer has been consistently present. Now I find myself in new roles. For example, I am a mentor to younger cheer team members and the coordinator of customer service at work. At 4 or 5 months of age, after learning to fly, young ducks must undertake a long migration. Now the same is true for me, but I know where I want to go, what's right for me. My wings are strong, I'm ready to fly. All right, for these next 2 essays, I'm just going to read the opening and the closing so you can see a great example of how 2 students for very different topics united their openings and closings. So I'm going to read just the opening. So this is the first essay. Probably guess what the topic is about. All right. In the swell of the waves, 50 yards away from me, the infamous midnight blue sail chased my bait in hot pursuit. The sailfish hesitantly circled the bait, then went for the strike. As my cork viciously jerked up and down, the crew and captain exclaimed, "Let it eat." I nervously decided to set the hook, but unfortunately missed the bite. What went wrong in those few seconds? I simply didn't let it eat. I grew impatient instead of waiting for the fish to fully eat the bait. For the rest of that day, "Let it eat" played over and over again in my thoughts. A few days later, at the first tournament of the year, I found myself in the same situation. I watched a sailfish strike the same way as the other had, and this time the phrase, "let it eat," reminded me to be patient. I let the fish fully eat, and 20 minutes later, we were up one sailfish. Now to the concluding paragraph. Fishing has influenced me to become more patient and knowledgeable overall. Countless hours waiting have trained me to be patient throughout life, whether it be school, hobbies, or personal issues. The virtue of patience is helpful in many ways, and I feel blessed to have adopted this trait at a young age. Additionally, fishing has given me experience in trial and error and has forced me to pay attention to detail. Finally, the sport has taught me that in life, many times the best way to solve a problem requires experimentation and to let it eat. All right, here's another one. Again, first paragraph and final. Back when I was a chubby, glowing little girl, I was enchanted by a wooden-shaped sorting cube that included three-dimensional stars, hearts, cubes, and circles. It was a toddler's game made to improve shape recognition, dexterity, and matching skills, a toy that proved to be fun and intellectual. Although it was a fairly simple game, my 3-year-old self could never figure it out. Frustrated beyond relief, I tried to put the heart in the star-shaped outline or the circle in the square, time and time again. I remember my mom patiently grabbing the right shape, putting it in my hand, and bringing it to its proper outline while saying, "Heart goes with heart, star goes with star, circle with circle, and a square in square." Confused by her statement, I would cry out, "But why? Why?" And she would always answer, "Because that's where it fits." All right, now the concluding paragraph. So whenever I remember the wooden-shaped sorting toy, I remind myself that just because other people need to put shapes in their proper places, I don't have to. I don't have to conform to other people's expectations because I get to choose where my bar is set. Because even back then, when my mother wasn't watching, I would keep trying to put the heart in the star, the circle in the square. In the end, I would always open the lid and put all of the shapes inside the cube, looking down with satisfaction at the vibrant blue circles, the red squares, the yellow stars, the red hearts, all mixed with one another without judgment, without bias, shaping one another and filling the cube to its brim. All right, just a few more. I'm just going to read you just two extracurricular activities. One is a little bit longer. The second one was capped at a limit of 100 words. So this is the first one. This is the longer extracurricular. So this answers the prompt, give us a glimpse of a passion, dream, or mental pursuit that absorbs and delights you. There's a heart that beats with every movement that is made. Every catch has a release, everything a certain weight. This is natural to us when we examine and interact with the tangible world, and when the world is constructed by the imagination, it's not as obvious, such as a mental exercise, a pantomime. From the Greek pantomimus, imitating all, pantomime is an ancient form of performance and a craft I've been honing for 4 years now. It is complete nonverbal storytelling, excluding even the mouthing of words. This makes pantomime a universal art. I've performed a pantomime about the famous Kiss on VJ Day photograph, another about the technology impacting familial connection. Like the heartbeat that is embedded in the style of movement, boundless heart pours into each performance. Pantomime, the way I've experienced it, is the zenith of the creative process. Weeks are spent in conversation, incubating an idea. Translating the idea is turning words into invisible objects in silent emotion, pushing past the facade of language and into raw reality of expression. From there, it's fine-tuning. Don't walk through that table. Make sure you actually swallow that drink. It's ensuring that every emotion is clear and real. Pantomime is a syzygy of carefully selected movement, music, and expression that creates a holistic and speechless work of art. Of all my dramatic endeavors, pantomime has been uniquely rewarding because every component of the composition is dripping with my own creative juices. I am connected to the art form as a whole and the power vested in communication that is unbound by the coils of language. I find even now that I'm failing to truly capture the beauty of pantomime. It's a remarkable irony to fall short of imitating an art that is grounded in expression. And this one is a super short one. This is 100 words. I step out from behind the curtain and the hot stage lights shine down on my skin. Palms sweat, legs tremble. Then the world around me slowly slips away. It is a rush like no other, standing on stage seconds before performing. The excitement continues. When I rehearse for a show or study voice, every single time I forget the world and focus solely on theater. Theater serves as an outlet for self-expression and a means to leap into an uncharted world. My voice becomes a powerful tool. Life without theater is unimaginable. I will always seek opportunities to perform. And last one that I'm going to read, and then we'll start wrapping up tonight's webinar. And this is a Why This School essay. And you're going to notice that the author of this essay incorporated some really neat details. So the Boston University experience includes an interesting detail. Shelton's Hall, top floor study lounge. This glass-paneled spot with views over the Boston skyline is reputedly the home Eugene O'Neill's ghost. What irony, a literary genius constantly surveying students stressed over finals or finishing editing their fifth, hopefully, final draft of an English essay. Spirits aside, what's truly intriguing is how the sum total of the BU experience guides students on a path to solve tomorrow's problems. I want to major in neuroscience. BU combines the fundamentals I need with in-depth exploration of neurobiology through the CAS program. As I grow in the field, BU's modern facilities and technology will continuously provide research geared towards a variety of advancements, from extending regenerative medicine to establishing a stronger presence of health ethics in the medical community. CSN develops new treatments for neurodegenerative diseases, providing a great segue for my research at FSU. By analyzing diseases on multiple levels, I'll explore and extend capabilities of the human brain. But wait, there's BU snowboarding and ski club, the perfect opportunity for this Floridian to jump outside his comfort zone and develop new skills. From mastering beginner's slopes to shredding Casper Bowl, in BU SBC's collaborative environment, I'll make new friends whose warmth and camaraderie will combat the Boston cold. It's not just a campus, but it's a campus rich in history. So I'll immerse myself in my Beantown life as a terrier and as a special breed of problem solver. All right, so hopefully those essays served as some inspiration. There are a multitude of topics out there, and then it goes back to, it's all about you. And hopefully you could hear that in each of these essays. All right, briefly to talk about some supplemental essays that you might see on the Common App and on the Coalition if you use that. There is a COVID-19 short response. This essay, this is the prompt from Common App. There's a similar one on Coalition. This is a truly optional essay, and indeed most students don't answer it, but certainly it's there if COVID-19 or another natural disaster had an impact on you and you would like to share that with your reader. And then where to find supplemental essay questions. So they are going to be when the Common App goes live on August 1st, when you can access Coalition on SCORE on August 1st, you'll see the supplemental essay questions on the college's own pages. If you're eager to get a head start before the August 1st rollover, you can go to the admissions website of each college. Many times they list them there. That's where they release them. Also, they like to release them on social media. So, give a following on Instagram, Twitter, etc. And oftentimes colleges will release supplemental essays there. Some of the popular ones, you heard two of them, the extracurricular, the why this college. Many colleges, I know UCF, for instance, ask, why have you selected your intended major? Other colleges might ask about a favorite book. They might ask you to list out your favorite books, podcasts, other forms of media that you like to consume. And other colleges will ask questions about aspects of your life or things that you find intellectually engaging. And of course, as we come to the end of tonight's webinar, we are certainly at Score at the Top, a JRA Educational Consulting, do work with students throughout the entire essay writing process, through comprehensive college planning, through private sessions with an essay experts. We do have an upcoming group boot camp done with Suncoast High School and Boca High School. We also do some small group in-person and virtual application workshops. And I'll give you the contact information if you want to find out more about that. And if you enjoyed spending, I guess probably about the last 45 minutes or so with me, next Tuesday evening, same time, different channel. It's going to be Zoom only. I am going to be hosting an essay brainstorming session. You can sign up by going to personalstatement.guru. If you have any difficulty, just shoot me an email. It's heart@scoreatt.com. You should also see that in the chat. I'm not going to be recording this session, and I am going to be inviting students to, show up with mics and cameras on if that's okay with them. And it's just a nice opportunity. I run these every summer for students to bounce ideas off of me, off of each other, and hopefully leave the session feeling a little bit more confident about their essay topics. So again, that's going to be next Tuesday, 6:30, and it will be on Zoom. It will not be recorded, however. If you'd like any more information about any of our programs, please take a screenshot, a picture of this page. These are the names and numbers of our Learning Center directors from Boca Raton all the way to Wellington. And then this summer, of course, we've got a lot going on at Score at the Top, not only for college applications and essays, test prep, and courses for credit. And as always, we always record our webinars. We will send a link to all registrants tonight, whether or not you attended. We also do post them on scorewebinars.com. They're always free. They're always on demand, so you can watch at your convenience 24/7. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with us, here is our number. You can call or text. You can email us at hello@jraec.com. And that should bring us, I'm going to end the show here, to the conclusion of tonight's webinar. I'm going to hide my screen. And I am going to, let's see, I'm so sorry. It looks like the PowerPoint slides didn't show. I apologize for that. Don't worry, this will be recorded so you can go back and watch it. So we will send out that recording. Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes that happens, unfortunately. Let me just go back through and let me just check out the unrelated question. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, there's a question there, so on an unrelated question, most of the Florida schools are not requiring letters of recommendation. That's true. Most of the Florida state schools do not take letters of recommendation, although some will, and they are optional. I believe Florida Poly and New College are two that will take letters of recommendation. So let me just go through here. Yeah, and again, I apologize for the slides. And yes, we'll definitely send out a recording so you can see the slides. And yeah, sorry about that. And let's just see. I think that was it. So don't worry, we'll get out a copy of the slides to everyone. Again, I do apologize. Does anyone have any other questions? Any other questions? Let me just see. All right, so good. All right, so then anyway, I thank you very much for your time and attention this evening. It was so good to connect with all of you, and then we'll get out a copy of those slides and the recording. And I look forward to hopefully, let's see, got another little message right here. And thank you so much for attending and for listening, and hopefully you learned something from this evening. And I look forward to seeing you too. Everyone take care, enjoy the rest of your summer, and have a good evening. Good night, everyone.